Hey guys, I'm Dan Rodgers with The Key Leadership Inc. and I'm excited about our influencer interview for this week. We're going to talk with my good friend Miranda Morley. She's a career consultant and a communication strategist. Stick around for a minute and we'll get started. So we're here today with my good friend Miranda Morley. She is a career strategist and communication expert on training and developing other people for career success. And we're going to talk today about some of the ideas that she has applied in her life that she has taught other clients as well as they come her way to advance their careers. And Miranda, you and I are both kind of in career development. We enjoy helping other people grow their careers. So tell me a little bit. So tell me first of all how you started this idea of career development.
Well, that's a really interesting question. So when I was in college, I kind of had the same experience that many people do where they did not know what they wanted to do. I took a lot of classes that I really enjoyed, things like Shakespeare and Emily Dickinson and stuff that I didn't really know how to apply. And I actually got a job as a journalist while I was still in college. Ended up realizing that's not really for me. So spent a lot of time trying to figure out how do I take this thing that I love, which is communication, which is writing, and how do I make that into a career? And I figured that out through working as a communication strategist and then also helping people to become better communicators in their career. So now it's really my passion and my mission to help other people do that because I feel like you should have a career that you love.
Yeah. And we really should be passionate about what we do, or it's really not what we should be doing anyway, right? We'll probably get to that in a little bit. But so when you and I were talking, we talked about three ideas, three simple, when someone comes to you and says, hey Miranda, I need some help, I want to put a strategy together. What are some thoughts, three questions that you tend to start with when you're trying to develop the mindset of a career development?
Right, well the three big questions that I ask would be, what's your target, what's your end goal, and then what roadmap do you have to get there? And then are you sure that this is aligning with your passions and your values?
Okay, and so let's talk about each of those three if we can. So first you mentioned, what is your end goal, right? So how do you help somebody find that end goal? Walk me through a scenario of what it might look like.
Well, a lot of people are in different places with that end goal, and it's surprising how many people will say, I absolutely have no idea what my end goal is. And then some people will, absolutely have an idea where that end goal is. What I always just tell people is that you need to have somewhere to aim. You need to have a target. If you don't have a target, you're going to hit it 100% of the time. And a lot of people are actually struggling in their careers because they simply haven't done this step. They haven't defined a target. Sometimes that's because of fear and stress and not being sure what's out there. Sometimes it's because they're afraid that if they say that this is what I'm going for right now, it means that I can't do any of these other things that exist. Well, that's not accurate, but you have to have somewhere to aim. It doesn't mean that your target can't move. And it doesn't mean that if something happens to step in front of your target, that it's just an opportunity out of nowhere that you love, that you can't go for it. But if you're not aiming for anything, you're just not going to succeed.
So the principles of writing it down, you help them write it down in ways like that. Is that how you help them define it, or what are some other core disciplines that you help instruct them on?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it is self-reflection. So that's something that I ask people out of questions, and think about what it is that you want to do, what your values are, what your strengths are. Write some of that stuff down. That is a principal component of what I do. I also walk people through looking through the different opportunities out there. We live in a world that's changing rapidly. Many of the careers that exist now that are really hot careers weren't not even there. Even 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. And so I work with people that just help them see what's out there. And then another thing that we'll often do is we'll go through working through some assessments sometimes to see what they want to do, and then also just examining, maybe shadowing other people that have achieved certain things, and we kind of look at their lives and look at those examples. So there's a few things we walk through.
And that roadmap is so important to have. So you also talked about the idea of what is your end goal. Okay, so we just talked about that, and then you talked about how do you put together that roadmap. And so we can go places without a GPS and stuff like that, and we need to have our GPS though sometimes, because the road of life and towards success does get hairy sometimes, and it gets scary. And so what are how do you help put together that roadmap and help them stay on that roadmap?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number two thing after not having a goal is not having a way to get there. Just like you said, you need a GPS, you need a map if you're a little bit old-fashioned. You need somewhere to get where you're going. And one of the ways that we do that is, we look at, first of all, accepting the fact that not everybody's road is going to be the same. You know, we're going to have somebody's road might be a lot shorter, some is going to be a lot longer. Just like sometimes you put on your GPS because you've been trying, you always struggle to go to this one place that you know where it is, but you don't quite know how to get there. And then sometimes you want to drive the whole way down to Florida or California. You know, sometimes our road maps are longer and sometimes they're shorter, and that's okay. So the first thing is accepting that that's true. The second thing is looking at what are these key things that I need to get in place to get to this end goal. You know, sometimes first we look at what absolutely is necessary. I'm not going to be able to do this unless I do that. Sometimes it's education. More often than not, it's not. People oftentimes get stuck with that. I have to go back to school. Many times you don't. A lot of times it's connections. You need to build your network. You need to get out there. Sometimes it's tools. Do I have a resume? Do I have a website? Do I have a LinkedIn profile? So we go through all of those steps to figure out what are those key things we need to do, and what do we need to do first, second, and third. Because if there's anything that I don't like is telling someone, you know, you have to wait till you do X, and then you can do Y. I like to tell people, like, it's okay to get started with what you have. Don't sit around and wait. So if we can find something that we can do, we can be working on Y, you know, as we're doing X, that's great. So we like to look at that kind of a roadmap.
You know, I remember someone telling me that, you know, when you get started as an entrepreneur or in your career, you've got to be ready to make as many mistakes as possible as early as possible. Be willing to, you know, open up and be ready. If it's a mistake, that's okay. It's something you can learn from, but it's definitely not going to hurt you in a bad way for the long term. And it can only be a beneficial as long as you choose to learn from that mistake. So when you're talking about a career, you mentioned education sometimes is necessary. You mentioned having the right tools and the right network in place. And so you talked about, you know, building a LinkedIn profile, building your resume. You and I both see it all the time, no doubt. People come to us and hand us a resume and think that's their ticket to success. So what are some things you look for on a resume that say, this guy's going somewhere, or this girl, she needs some help on the paper part of it, at least the resume aspect of it. You know, she might be driven, but how does she get that across on paper? What are some thoughts you put on that?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that I say is that your paper can't testify to your soft skills. Everybody's going to say they're an excellent communicator. Everybody's going to say that they're mission driven. Your paper can say that as much as you want. It doesn't make it true. So I say don't waste that paper space with those kinds of adjectives. They're not quantifiable. Let your accomplishments and what you've done tell that story. So if you want to say that you are a great communicator, try to think of an example when you really managed to communicate effectively and tell that story on the resume. If you want to say that you've got a work ethic that's very strong, stronger than anyone else in your workplace, tell the story about how you were the one staying until 2 in the morning before the opening of the big promotion. You have to be specific with these things. I always say the more specific the better, and try to tell a story. People really get bored by general stuff. I get bored by general stuff. I don't want to read it. But if it's a story, if it's specific, then absolutely. So definitely play to your strengths. Tell specific stories, and then also make sure that you are not getting into information that's not really related to what you're doing. A lot of people want to put everything they've ever done on their resume, and while you're proud of it and while that's great, if it's not a clear line to what your goal is, go ahead and leave that off and talk about it somewhere else.
It's always better to, you know, not mention certain things on your resume. Like, I mean, I'm sure everybody was really glad they worked at, you know, the restaurant they worked at when they were in high school, but it's probably not necessary to advancing your career necessarily right away. It's probably, if you want to be a leader of an organization, you know, it's probably better to put leadership skills on there. And so I love how you mentioned the adjectives, keeping adjectives off of your resume. I think there's adverbs you should put on your resume, right? Like developed, produced, those words are important
those
to
are
help
actual
tell your
verbs,
story.
not
The
adverbs.
verbs. Adverbs, am I wrong?
English teacher.
I gotcha.
Verbs are really important, and that is, you know, there is something to be said about keywords. Everybody's talking about keywords. I'm not here to tell you they're not important, because they are important. But if you think about this, you know, we had this same stressor back in the 90s with the keywords and the search engine optimization. Turns out there's other things people care about. So while those keywords are important, and I definitely don't want to discourage you from utilizing them, and there's some awesome, great free tools out there too that'll help you identify what those keywords are, and I definitely think that you should use them, and you want to use strong verbs for sure. It's
Not
really
adverbs.
important, not adverbs. Adverbs tend to end in ly.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking they do.
But the thing that you really want to do is you want to make sure that you have some content there, and that those keywords are there, but they're embedded within content. What I find with most of my writers who work for me, who write resumes, and then with my clients who come to me with resumes, if you write the story, those words are oftentimes going to naturally put themselves in there. Then do a quick keyword scan to make sure they're in there enough. But don't just try to have the words and build everything around it.
I remember thinking of the idea that most people only look at a resume for 7 seconds. So when a resume comes across a hiring manager's desk, you've got 7 seconds to make that first impression. And you don't want a bunch of information that doesn't matter at all on there. And so I love how you're sharing this roadmap, because the roadmap idea is really important. We've got to be heading in the right destination. And then you talked about the last thing. The third thing, which is, I believe, the most vital, it sounds like, is this actually your passion? Tell me about that and kind of get excited about it.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that their passion maybe is something that it's not, and a lot of people also feel that they have to do certain things. If you majored in business, you have to get a job as an accountant or as in a business field. If you majored in healthcare, you have to be working in a hospital. A lot of people have these ideas, and really they're not true. The sky is the limit. There is really a way to get to anything that you want, maybe a little longer than others, but it's really important that what you do is aligned with your passions and with your values. If there's disconnect there, what you're going to find is that you burn out really fast. You start doing a bad job, which means that you're not as promotable, you're not in a position to really grow, and the hardest thing for me is that you're not really helping the people you're serving. So I work with a lot of clients that actually realize that maybe something was their passion, but it changes, and that's okay. That happens to all of us. We go through different phases in life, and our passions and our values, they change. And so I've worked with a lot of people who say, I did this for 20 years and I loved it and I was good at it and I was passionate about it, but now I know that I'm not there anymore and I want to do something different. And I feel like if I stay here anymore, I'm doing a disservice of the people that I'm serving. So it is really important that you make sure that what you do is aligned with your passion and your values, and take time to go back and do an assessment of that. Just sit down, and that's a great place where reflective writing comes in too. Or if you're not a writing person, I am a writing person, so I always go to writing. But
I couldn't figure out adverbs and verbs, so
right? If you can't figure out adverbs and verbs, but you don't have to know that to write. But if you don't like to write, that's where the phone recorder comes in great. Like, you just record your thoughts into your phone and say, what are the things that I did this week that are really aligned with my passion and how I want to make an impact in the world. It could be something. I know people that have worked in custodial work that is their passion is to serve other people, and their passion is to equip people to do the best that they can. And so they have loved custodial work. And I know people too who have been writers. They go home and they write, and then they work custodial jobs because they like the order and they like the cleanliness, and then it allows them to serve people. If that's what if that hits where you're at, then that is great. But just take time and think. Everybody's going to have things in their job that don't align with their passions. Things you have to do. You're going to have to go on the computer. You're going to have to log whatever. It's just part of life. But think about, these are the things I did this week, and this is how they align with my passions. If you're finding, and your values, if you're finding that more things don't, or if you're finding big disconnects, I feel like what I'm doing may be unethical. I feel like what I'm doing, I do not care about it at all. If you're finding big things, or if you're finding a lot of things that just aren't lining up, then it's time for a reassessment.
We have to do a job that we love, or it's just a job, and it's not worth it to live our life in quiet desperation constantly and just go to work just because we have to. It's better to go to work because I want to, and it doesn't really become a job, it becomes a passion. It's something you really want to do. And reflecting that on your resume, as a professional resume writer yourself, reflecting that on your resume is important. And so I really love how you mentioned those words, of keeping the words very careful and very specific on your resume. For making sure you're showing your actual passion for helping people. A lot of people, we hear it all the time. They say, well, I think I got to go back to school and do ... But why? Why do you know why you need to go back to school? Have you ever thought of that and considered that idea? So I'm so thankful for this opportunity. I'd love to talk a little bit, real quick before we're done, a little bit more about the resume. When you as a professional resume writer are asked, can you write my resume? what gives you the yes or no of, no, I'm not going to be able to help you with this resume, or sure, I'll be happy to help?
Well, a lot of times it comes back to, first of all, does the person have a goal in mind? Do they have a goal that they want to achieve? And is that something that, you know, they don't even have to be so specific. I will work with people that aren't specific with where they're at, but do they have something that they really want?
Yeah.
Or is it just something that's being done because they have to, you know, check off the boxes?
Yeah.
Another thing is, you know, I want to make sure that are you ethical? I've had people ask to make up resumes before.
Oh,
I will not do that. That's not what this business is.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, are they someone that's teachable? Because so many people think that they know what should be on their resume, and are they willing to part with things that maybe they think are important?
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, you know, previously, that not everything you've done should be on your resume, and sometimes there are things you're really proud of that don't need to be on the resume.
Yeah.
So if people aren't willing to part with that stuff, a lot of times I say, you know, I can't help you make it better unless you're willing to part with some of these things that don't need to be there.
If you're like me, I've got adverbs where there should be a verb. So it really is good to be able to, you know, I get people all the time that talk to me and they say, well, I did this, I put my heart and soul into this project, and you don't want me to put it on my resume? Well, it doesn't benefit our client whatsoever. It doesn't benefit the company you're going to go to for them to know this information. There's a better line that you can put in there instead of this.
And there's also a better place for that.
Yep.
You know, the things that you've done that are your passion projects,
Yeah.
they may go on your resume. I know I've had things go on the resume that aren't strictly work experience, so that's important to talk about too. You know, if you've done other things, they could go there.
Yeah.
But if the resume's not the spot for it, there is another place that is. And I think that's an important life lesson too in your career, because, you know, today might not be the day, but tomorrow might be. You know, it might not be that you are going to work in this industry now, but maybe later. So there's a time and a place for everything, and figuring that out in your own career is important.
That's so helpful. So a lot of your clients, do they tend to be more just getting started in their career, or do they tend to be experienced professionals that have developed a pretty good background?
You know, I work with a lot of people who are in transition.
Okay.
So that often is somebody that's a, you know, C-level exec that's trying to do something different. Work with a lot of people that are in an industry like education, like healthcare, that maybe want to transition into a different education or into a different industry. Some people that may have acquired multiple skill sets and they want to know how to blend those skill sets to do something really innovative and cool. So sometimes those are people that are just starting out, and sometimes those are people that have been doing it for a while. But really, where my specialty is if you're transitioning, if you're making a big jump, then I can help you do that.
Yeah, and that's too awesome. I'm really happy today that we got to talk to Miranda, and what a great woman that has helped so many people advance their careers. And I imagine it would be wonderful for you to be able to contact her and get a hold of her. Let her know. We will put her contact information in the comment section below, and I want you to get a hold of her and reach out and just talk to her about a roadmap of your success. Your career is important. Where you're going to go is very important, and give her a chance to help you. I hope these thoughts that she shared today have helped you in your journey of career success.